stories. Everybody likes stories, right? Okay. I just got back from a 2-week tour up to Yellowknife that was just filled with so many experiences that I just wanted to share them with somebody. Yellowknife, if you've never heard of it, it's the capital city of Northwest Territories, which is in northern Canada. Not only is it the capital city, Yellowknife is the only city in Northwest Territories, about 20,000 people, which is pretty much almost directly north of Vancouver, a little bit to the east, but mostly just head 2,500 kilometers straight north of Vancouver. It'd take you about 26, 28 hours to drive, or just under a couple hours if you took a flight. I had this opportunity. It's Yellowknife's in the traditional Tlicho territory between Great Slave Lake and Great Bear Lake. So I was up there visiting a bunch of Tlicho communities, Wekwiti, went to Gaviti, we were Tlicho, touched down ever so briefly in Wati. But working, doing filmmaking projects with students and youth in these communities and in schools around, in and around Yellowknife. Okay, first off, we all know, everybody in this world who ever flies these days, we know how inconvenient it is. They're taking away your juice boxes and your contact solution and your toothpaste, and it's all this invasive kind of take this off and take that off and scan, whatever. Everybody should have the opportunity to fly in the north at least once. So flying into Yellowknife's that normal experience, but then we get there and I spent the first day in Tlicho. That's great. But then we're going to fly to Wekwiti, and so we take this little Air Tindy flight, and it's just like a little prop plane. You go out there, walk out on the tarmac, and so when we were flying in, there's like 2 of us that were flying into the community. They've taken out all the seats, anything that's got weight. There's these little grooves on the floor that the seats, slide in, pop out, kind of like in a car. And so they put in a couple seats, and the 2 of us jump in there with the pilot. That's it. And when we go out there, like, it was April, so the temperature is, Celsius, anywhere from -10 at night to probably +10 during the day. So pretty mild, nice spring weather up north. But there's not going to be really any heat in the plane, so certainly while it's sitting there. So they've got this big kind of industrial heater with this big flexible hose, and they're blasting some heat in there, and we crawl up and we take off, and it's about a 45-minute flight to Wekwiti. As we're getting to the community, you're just flying over this beautiful, empty, Arctic landscape, lakes and bush, and all of a sudden you see this little village, maybe 200-300 people live there, and the plane kind of comes down, and we just kind of buzz the community, and then we go land at the little gravel runway that's just covered in snow, and there's just one little building out there, totally no lights on, no activity, no vehicles. So we get out of the plane, 3 of us, it's dead quiet, just totally still. And the pilot says to Kalinda, who I'm traveling with, he's like, "You got somebody coming to pick you up?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, somebody should be here." So he's like, "I'll just go see if the door's open and if you guys can get in here while you're waiting." And he jumps up and he goes to open the door, and he turns around all happy, and he's like, "Oh, no problem." So he punched the lock out, so it's open. He opens the door, and we go in, no lights on. It's just totally quiet or whatever. So I drop my bags, I go to the bathroom. By the time I come out of the bathroom, a minute later, there's a truck, and Kalinda's already out the door, and she's getting into this truck. So I go out there. Now, I don't think the guy worked for the airline or the airport. I was going to the school to work with kids. I don't think he worked for the school. We were staying at a lodge there. I don't really get the impression that he worked for the lodge either. I just think the plane buzzes the village as we come in, and somebody's like, "Plane's landing, somebody might need a drive." It just seems like this guy got in his truck and he just drives out there, and if somebody needs a ride, he gives them a ride. So that's pretty awesome. Next day, fly, first thing in the morning. We're supposed to fly, plane's coming in. We hear the plane buzz the community again in the morning, so there's our plane coming to get us. And the guy who's supposed to like give us a ride in a truck, maybe a different guy, he's not there. We're waiting around for 5 minutes, but you can't be too passive. So Kalinda goes out, and I think she's just banging on doors and knocking on doors around people. And next thing you know, there's a couple guys in a van, and we throw our stuff in the van, and they're driving us out there. The thing of that morning, waking up in Wequity, was it was so peaceful, and it was so beautiful. You know, most of us, we get up in the morning, we like pour ourselves a coffee, and you're like gonna check your emails, or you're gonna you know, whatever, start reading Flipboard, or you're watching something, listening. This morning, the view from this lodge, it was so spectacular. The sun coming up over this kind of Arctic landscape, and it was just so peaceful, and it was so beautiful. I just sat there with my coffee and just took it. It was like a deep breath for the soul. It was so amazing and restful, and I just loved it so much. But we get in this van to drive out to the airport, and there's only one radio station. They only get CBC, and Anna Maria Tremonti and Evan Solomon are doing their morning show out of Toronto, whatever, about, you know, one is about Mike Duffy and this corruption of politicians and the legal case and the Conservative government, blah, 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 and then we move on to some pedophile story who was re-released and went back into the home and kept abusing, and I was like, it was such a contrast, you know? You're out there, you feel like in some ways you've fallen off the edge of, you know, the earth. You're on a whole other planet, you're in a whole other world, but what that means is you're not part of this world of busyness and negative information and anxiety and road rage and stress and busyness and all this kind of stuff. The contrast could never have been more clearly, and so I'm just enjoying this beautiful moment of peace and the connection to creation and just feeling thankful for everything. And then I jump into the van, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the world, you know? And so we get to the airport. It's maybe 3 miles down this gravel road. We're just puttering along, listening to all this horrible crap. Yeah, I've never hated the news more than that morning. And so we get there, and I pull out a CD, and I'm just like, hey guys, here's one of my CDs, thanks for the ride, you know, and Kalinda gives them her, you know, the little cigarette adapter where you can like plug your iPod in and play it to the stereo, and she's like, here, have this. We're just like trying to give anything we've got so they never have to listen to this depressing radio station again. So anyways, that was my one moment of contrast between this world and another. So we fly to Gamity, and we get to this community, and I make films in the morning with these kids in this high school. It's really awesome and fun. And then we're waiting for our flight to come pick us up later in the afternoon. They said, hey, there's a guy with a dog sled who's coming out here. Do you guys want to go out on the lake and watch what he's doing with the kids? So I'm like, of course I want to go see dog sledding. So we go out there, and they're unloading these dogs, and they're getting the sleigh set up, and I'm just, it's amazing, honestly. I've never seen it all. It's really quite exciting. And right before this one sled takes off, Kalinda says, go jump on the back of that thing. And the next thing you know, I'm like skimming across this frozen lake at the back of a dog sled. Thank God I had this little camera in my pocket that I'm able to hang on for dear life with one hand and just start filming this incredible experience I'm having. Who gets to do that? Who just wakes up in the morning and gets to like later that afternoon with no thought or preparation? I say, who gets to do that? Who from the south? Who doesn't live in the north would ever get this kind of opportunity? So we get to do this, and we see the plane buzz over the head, so it's like, holy crap, we better like get to the airport. So somebody stops the dog sled, and I get on a skidoo, and we start making our way back, and we get to the airport. We get on this flight, and we fly back 45 minutes to Yellowknife. It goes to my last day. We fly to Tlicho. There's a spring carnival. So we get there, and it's like, oh yeah, there's going to be broom ball down on the lake at 1 o'clock. So we walk down to the lake, and I don't see anybody playing broom ball, but they have a Zamboni that's stuck trying to get off of the ice. So a bunch of people are pushing the Zamboni, and they managed to get it freed up. And I just think it's amazing. Skidoos are flying by, and people are like getting ready for broomball on the lake on this beautiful spring day up in the Arctic. So we walk up and we manage to catch this opening ceremony with the drummers and the circle where there's opening kind of ceremony. And again, you gotta fly up north. You just have to, because we're standing there waiting for our flight to come in. Nobody's asking me anything. And the door opens behind me, and somebody walks in and this slams something on the ground. And I look down, and there's this huge Rubbermaid, and the top won't even stay on it. And there's like flesh and fur, and there's like some blood, and it's sticking out of the handholds and coming out of the top. And this lady goes, "I got 6 of these." And her and a couple of her friends, they start bringing in all this caribou that's just been killed and cut up. And she's like, "I gotta get this caribou. I don't got any more room in my freezer, and I want to get this caribou to Yellowknife, and I ain't paying for it." And thus begins this process of this lady and her friends bringing in 6 giant Rubbermaids filled with caribou, cut up dead caribou with just popping out of everywhere. And there's a charter plane there, and there's our little plane that's coming in, and she just starts negotiating and kind of badgering and ignoring all of the people who are there because she wants to get all of this caribou on the plane and get it back to Yellowknife, and she doesn't want to have to pay for it. And lo and behold, she pulls it off. So get to Yellowknife. Now it's about 7 o'clock. This is gonna be my last night in Yellowknife. And Clinda's like, "You hungry? Where do you want to eat?" And I'm like, "Yeah, totally. Let's eat somewhere." And she's like, "We could go right there to the Legion, and they're having a meat raffle." And I'm like, "A meat raffle? What the heck is that? I've never even heard of it." She's like, yeah, you buy these raffles, they're raffling off hams and chickens and roasts and stuff. And I'm like, of course I want to go to a meat raffle at the Legion. Like, when am I ever going to get a chance to do that? So we go to the Legion, and we have this, I have experienced my first meat raffle. They take it very seriously. They call your number, and you don't say yes. That lady, she would go from table to table just to make sure that somebody didn't have the winning ticket and was just like absently, avoiding being a winner. They were quite serious about ensuring that everybody was a winner. But anyway, we had that, and then it was like, now what are we going to do? We get a ride across the city, across Yellowknife, so we can go to karaoke. Now, I've never done karaoke. I've seen it, but here I am suddenly in the middle of karaoke, and people are singing Loverboy. And the next thing you know, I'm singing Ozzy Osbourne. And that's this amazing. And we're there until it shuts down. And then somebody's like, "Well, you better take Rick to the range." And I'm like, "What's the range?"
Range or range? Range! Range! Oh, for God's sake. I cheered my ass off for 30 seconds and they played a country song.
If you got one last night in Yellowknife, if you're ever in Yellowknife and you got a last night, you got to go to the range.
There goes Clinda dancing with God knows who.
And there's this band, local band, and they're pumping out these cover tunes. And
Where else can I be but in the north?
The bass player's wearing this like full-length trench coat. He's kind of got slash hair without the top hat, and they're just pumping it out, and everybody's dancing.
I should go dance with somebody.
We're just partying at the range with all these amazing, awesome people, and then the next thing you know, you're back on a flight where they're taking your toothpaste and your contact solution so that you can fly back down south. But it's left me with this incredible love for, as always, I get to go up north probably once a year, and if you ever have the chance, somebody says, "Do you want to go to Yellowknife? Do you want to go to the north?" Say, of course I do.